Hi, house guests. Welcome back to the show. Today, I have my blazer on because we are back being business women, okay? We have Sarah Brooks on the show, and she is quite a star in the business space. She's the co-founder of Goldilocks. She's a brand consultancy agency. She's an angel investor. She's an advisor. Like, she does so many different things. She's had a very cool career that's evolved and changed over the last 2 decades. She's sold companies actually twice, which is really never happens. She's just giving us amazing advice for anyone career-wise, and also everything about building a brand that people actually love and care about. And as a founder myself, this is an invaluable conversation. It's rare that I have a business talk on the podcast, even though that's what I feel like my entire life revolves around. So I hope you guys enjoy. I love chatting with her. It's such a good episode. Without further ado, let's welcome Sarah onto the show. Okay, we've already been having such a great chat.
Yes, we have.
I'm so happy that you're here today.
I'm so happy to be here too. I was just saying off air that I wish I had a podcast like this when I was in my 20s because I didn't know what I was doing.
Oh my gosh,
it worked out, but it would have been really nice to have some guidance.
Well, I'm always trying to get guidance, and then I'm bringing it to the girlies,
which is amazing.
I'm always like, come on, let's all do this together.
You're the mouthpiece. You're like the sponge for what's happening, and then you get to tell everybody. It's amazing.
I really try.
Well, you do a great job.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, can you give us just a little bit of backstory?
Yeah.
You have a really crazy career. And I love people who evolve and change and are always moving, and you are doing that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I don't think I've had the most straight line career, but then if I actually look back at it, it all kind of culminated in what I'm doing today. But I guess to go way, way back, the irony is I wanted to be a talk show host my whole life. So
look at you now.
Look at me now, Mom. I made it, 42, and I made it. But I've always been fascinated by people and learning, and I did not have a sport growing up. My sport was talking to people. And I just love hearing people's stories, what makes them tick, why they do something. So I knew that was probably going to be some sort of job in media or marketing. My dad was a doctor. I was grossed out by blood. I didn't want to go kind of the lawyer route. And I just, I love people. And so first I was the entertainment reporter for my college campus hard-hitting news. I think 2 people watched our news. I went to University of San Diego, and I did hard-hitting news from Us Weekly. I worked at MTV. I did casting at MTV. This was cool. Way back.
What were you casting for?
I was casting. This was probably so illegal because we would take a van and go to Tijuana. And when people were 10 sheets to the wind, we'd be like, do you want to be on Next? Do you remember Next?
Oh my God. No, what was Next?
It was a dating show. And it was you would push someone out and be like, next, I want the next person. We did Pimp My Ride.
Okay, yes.
And Room Raiders.
Oh my God.
The icons of the early aughts. So I casted for MTV. And then after college, I moved to LA, and I worked at E! News, actually right down the street from kind of where we are. I worked in the development department. And at that time, it was 2005 or 2006. So this is pre-Kardashian. And I say that to kind of date, this was the dawn of reality TV. And so my job, I kid you not, was to watch the Today Show, The View for 4 hours and to try to find the next star. And then my second part of my day was receiving all these VHSs from people who wanted to have their own show on E! And I was the first line of defense. So I would watch the show, and then I would go to my boss's office, who I just reconnected with after 20 plus years. And I would say, I think this person would make for a good reality star. I'd meet them in the lobby, I'd walk them up, and then I'd hear the pitch meeting. And that was such incredible access for someone straight out of college.
What was the common theme that you would find between people that you thought were going to be a star?
It's the same thing that I think I find now for what makes a good founder, a good brand. And it's kind of an annoying answer, but because it's not concise, it's just that the je ne sais quoi. It's that's something, that energy, that magnetism.
The vibe.
The vibe.
You catch a vibe.
You catch a vibe, and it's you're curious. You leave the room being oh, I wish I asked them this, or I want to know this. And I met so many different people from so many different walks of life. And it also, on the contrary, tells you what makes bad TV. People come in, and when they're so perfectly pitched and there's no room for ad-libbing, and it's so contrived. And again, this was unscripted television that made really bad TV. So I worked at E! And then I moved to New York, and I wanted to be Carrie Bradshaw, as one does.
Of course.
As one does. And so moved to New York. I started to interview at publications like Elle and Vogue. I got an offer at Elle for $18,000 a year.
So rich.
Rich. They did say I would have unlimited access to the beauty supply closet.
Oh, how kind.
which was actually great, but I was like, I can't do this. There's no way I can live on $18,000.
And it's also like they got that stuff for free.
Yeah, it's so funny.
That's like
now
me telling someone rate the PR drawer. Like, okay.
Now you look back and you're like, this was some form of like young adult slavery. But like at the time, you're so like, it's New York. You want to work at Condé Nast or Hearst.
And it's romanticized too.
So
like
romanticized.
the starving. Yeah. It's
yeah. I mean, literally when I was interviewing at Condé, I was in the elevator with Anna Wintour and it was like, I like called my dad after. I was like, I've made it, Dad. And like didn't get the job, but I made it. Like I was there.
What was that elevator ride like?
She had her sunglasses on. She stared straight ahead. It was exactly like The Devil Wears Prada. But that was like the dawn of publishing and like this, Cosmos and Vogues and Elle's and like, multi-million-dollar press campaigns. And so what I learned from that is like, instead of being on the editorial side, I want to be on the storytelling side, which kind of led me into PR. And so I started my first job at a PR firm in New York and worked with beauty brands and fashion brands and was in New York for 6 years, which I seriously think for anyone listening, the world has changed post-COVID. I mean, there was a time where you could only get that experience in New York or you could only get that experience in LA. But I will tell my daughter who's 7, like, I'm going to force her to go live in New York for 2 years. I just think it makes you... It spits you up and it chews you out and it like refines your craft. And if you work the city, I still leverage the relationships and the learnings and I'm 42 now and I still use it all.
Absolutely. I think also moving away in your 20s is so beneficial for your life.
And I'm sad. I'm sad feels dramatic, but like from what I see, like a lot of 20-year-old, like 20, post-college to late 20s are still living at home. And I can't even begin to understand like going to college through COVID and like the job market and how expensive life is. But if you can like get out on your own, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. I moved to LA when I was 17. It was my senior year of high school.
Crazy.
So I graduated early. And I was so young that you're also so naive, which was helpful when it came to moving. It was the best thing ever. I think doing it earlier, the earlier the better. Like now, then I was here for 5 years and then I moved to Dallas. I grew up in the suburbs of Dallas. So I wasn't actually like in Dallas. So it did feel actually very different.
Yeah.
And that ended up being honestly the best thing I ever did, that move.
What were your parents? I mean, were they supportive and they're just like, go do your thing?
My dad like thinks I could run for president, but not in an unhealthy, delusional way. He's also the first person to be like, you are wrong.
Yeah.
But he's incredibly supportive. My mom's also very supportive.
Yeah.
My dad was definitely the one who was like emotionally supportive of the move. Like I sat down with him and like one thing about me is I love a PowerPoint. Okay. So it was my junior year of high school. And at the time I started on YouTube. So I was making YouTube vlogs. At the time, that was when everyone who had a YouTube channel needed to live in LA. It was a very different time.
Exactly.
And everyone was moving and they were moving out early. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do that too. I was also graduating a little bit. I had barely any classes left. So I made him a PowerPoint. I put it on the projector and I gave him this presentation. And he's like, honestly, the presentation was so good. Like, I didn't really have a choice. And my dad, like, we're so close. So for me to move out a year early was very difficult for him. But yeah, he was very supportive. And he still says that was the best thing we ever did.
That's amazing. There is nothing, I mean, like, I was so lucky. I grew up with parents who probably gave me too much confidence. They're like, you can literally do anything. And I look back at that and like, I think it was amazing because there's humility. You have to like balance that. Like, I certainly know there's plenty of things I'm not good at, but growing up in an environment where it's like, you can do anything. I mean, that I think is the best gift a parent could ever give a kid.
I also think it's really helpful because with my dad specifically, like he was the first one to tell me that I was wrong. Or even if I was like going to him about some friendship drama or something that was happening, he would always give me, even if he didn't think that I was the one in the wrong, which he most of the time did, like he would always give me the other side. So I feel like it helped me a lot in like identity, because now you see just like in the culture that we're in, people make a mistake, therefore they're bad forever and that's it. Right. But because my dad, like on one hand, thought I could do anything and achieve anything and was so supportive, but at the same time was telling me that I was wrong.
So that opinion was so valuable.
It was so valuable. And it was so helpful because I understood that I could make a mistake, but I wasn't bad and just like
100%.
Wiped out, if that makes any sense.
100%. Well, A+ parenting to your mom and dad.
He's the best. She's the best too. But anyway, I have so many like questions for you.
Oh my gosh,
I'm so excited that we're like sitting down.
I'm so excited to be here too.
It's been like a really fab time so far. If you could go back and give your 20-year-old self one piece of advice, what would you say?
It's so funny you asked that because I live in San Diego and I was just driving up here and I'm super lucky. I get a lot of messages and DMs from girls in their 20s being like, could I just pick your brain? And I really try to like take every call. And I just had this call and I think she asked the question a little differently, like maybe was it a regret or something? And my advice to myself then is my advice to myself now, which is like, take every call. Like be curious, be open, say yes and figure out how to do it later. Like my entire career has been, I think, very untraditional. Like I didn't go to business school. I learned through absorption. I learned through being obsessed with like the end product, like reverse engineered. So if I wanted to be a publicist, I went and read the Vogue cover story. And I'm like, how would I reverse engineer the Vogue cover story? And so I think at a really early age, that curiosity drove everything. And it allowed me to have like no shame, which I think is such a great quality. Like I failed a lot, but I never took those failures as like, oh, I'm bad. I took those failures as like, okay, well, don't do that again. But it's trite when you say you learn so much more from your failures than your successes. So my advice is the same, which is like, say yes, show up, be curious. Like every single person I've met has opened my eyes in some way or another, even if it never led to anything.
I think the advice to be curious is so helpful to someone in their 20s, especially just in the day and age that we're at, like generationally, because it's so easy to be so self-focused and self-centered.
Yeah.
And people, I feel like before, like even the concept of a mentor, I feel like 10 years ago was a way bigger deal than it like feels like now.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you necessarily have to like go to someone and say like, will you be my mentor? Like, I think it's just like different strokes for different folks, whatever. I love anyone who has like even 5 years older than me. Like I personally, I just feel like I've learned so much from specifically women who are older than me in my life that like, even just like the couple of I've had like probably 5 hours of conversations with them collectively. Like I think about them all the time.
Amazing.
And now, honestly, it wasn't really super intentional. It was like I had a podcast.
Yeah.
So I was just naturally curious and I was like meeting all these women and learning so much from them because I was bringing them onto the show. And then as time has gone on, I'm like, really, when I look back at like personally the past like decade of my career, I'm 27 now, like I really think that the most beneficial thing that I've done is like invest in women who are older than me. I feel like I just learned so much.
I love that.
But it wasn't intentional. It was genuinely because of the podcast.
And so many of like the best things in life happen unintentionally. And I actually did not have a mentor, like a career mentor. I had maybe like 1,000 and I wish I had one. And I try to do that now. And I was just having this conversation. I have a dear friend. Her name is Kara Jackson, and she's the chief brand officer at SET, and she worked for me for 7 years. And she's incredible. But I like to think that I helped her a little bit in the beginning, and I BCC'd her on every email. And she was straight out of college, and I was running my firm. I had a PR firm that I sold a few years ago, and I knew she was something special, and she had such passion, and she had such a penchant for learning that I was like, if you really want to do this, I'm going to teach you everything. I'm going to BCC you. I'm going to let you sit in on calls. And typically that access is not given when you're a CEO of a company and you're someone, but there was just something so special about her. And she and I were just talking last week, like, wouldn't it be fun to kind of formalize some sort of mentorship program for young women, like, but very career driven, very specific. So I love that idea. And I think everyone in their 20s should find a mentor.
I think that you should definitely do that, by the way.
Okay, great.
I think that that's a genius idea. And there are definitely people who really want that and need that more importantly.
Yeah, and it's funny because I get all these like, can I pick your brain for 20 minutes? And the reality is like, I'm sure I can help someone in 20 minutes, but like you can't really scratch the surface. And if there is some sort of formal mentorship program where you whether it's, she and I or someone else, but someone who's really made it, like I don't think there's a better, it's like an MBA in like career life, like way more beneficial than business school. So, okay, well maybe you'll give us the motivation to go do that.
I think you should definitely do that. And also just, she's so lucky to have had that access. Like that really is, you learn so much more through that than you would in school even. Yeah.
I swear that like where I learned the most was like I had a boss once who ripped me to shreds. And that day is still like emblazoned in my memory. And so when I think back, I did have a mentor, but I had a few like not so fun bosses that put the like scared me to death. And it's much better to have the opposite, to have someone who leads with positivity.
Something that I felt in my 20s, like just kind of touching on what you were saying, is that I have found it's been more beneficial for me to realize like what I don't want to be versus like who I do want to be. So I do feel like you learn more through failures or messing up or just even like immersing yourself in like cultures or groups of people where you're like, oh, I actually don't want that at all. I think that gives you better direction. Like we try to focus too much on like the sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
And I actually think that I've just learned personally at least more.
And because I think it sticks more with you.
Yeah.
Like, and also as a society, I think we're not great at celebrating wins.
Yes.
And like the losses feel so much more impactful and like painful. And so I think if you can take those losses and then like use that as like steroids to navigate the win, I think that's so impactful.
Absolutely. Okay, I have some questions about PR.
Yeah.
More specifically about like storytelling of a brand. Actually, let's start with like, what do you think people are doing wrong in PR right now?
Oh my gosh.
Where do I begin?
Yes. I mean, I think, so when I started in PR in like the early 2000s, like you literally would write a press release, you would fax it. Like I don't, you probably have you ever sent a fax?
I've seen my dad send a fax at home.
I mean, so yeah, fax.
Dolly Parton only communicates via fax.
That's what I
think of to this day. If Miley Cyrus wants to get in contact with her, she faxes her.
That is incredible.
Insane.
What an incredible mode of communication in 2025. That's incredible. So back then, you didn't have a 24/7 media cycle because you didn't have social media. Everything was so different. Like people talk about how much technology innovates. Like PR is literally a completely different field. So PR then, there was a total separation of church and state, meaning editors sat on one floor, sales side sat on one floor. There was no affiliate marketing. So people would write about a product if it was good. You typically, like the advertisers would somewhat like drive what would be featured. Now you look at it and like everything is driven by affiliate. So when I tell people like, should I have PR for my brand? You could have like the coolest brand ever, but if you're not like doing the pay to play and you don't have an affiliate model, it's so hard to get press. And so like the merits of what makes a good story are still the same, but the modes to get good PR have changed. It has to be like, if you look at a marketing flywheel, it's like what's going on social, what's going on in content, what's going on in affiliate, and they all have to work together. So it's not like go pay a $10K retainer to PR firm and you get PR. It's like, well, how much are you investing in social? How much are you investing in Meta? How much are you investing in paid ads? So it's it's so much more complex. I feel so bad for publicists today. You cannot pay me to be a publicist today. Yeah. Like I will always be a publicist. What I do now is not PR. It's more so strategy and positioning, but the rules have just changed.
The faxing feels like a way better.
Oh, yeah, I know. Take me back to the facts. I was just saying to someone, one of my first PR jobs, our boss called us in the conference room. She's like, so there's this new thing called Facebook. And if any one of you is seen following a client on Facebook, you will be fired. It is a private format. Leave them alone. That is their lives. And I mean,
so crazy.
It's so crazy, right? And no one paid attention to bloggers, right? Like anyone, if you got a press hit that was online versus print, my boss would be like, don't even send it to the client. Like they only want print coverage. Like it's just everything is different. It is a whole new ballgame.
It is a totally different world.
Yeah.
I feel like every 2 years it's a different world.
It is. And I think with like the 24/7 news cycle, like as a brand, you have to constantly be giving people something to talk about. And that can be like sometimes not the most strategic thing if you're like operating a brand. Like you shouldn't just, I've talked about this before, but like the shiny object syndrome, you're like, well, this brand just did this cool drop or this brand just did a collab with an influencer. And it's like so enticing to think about doing that. But if you're always chasing PR, it's not often the right way to run a company.
Oh, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about like, let's go into more detail on what you're doing now.
Yeah. So I sold my PR firm in 2020 to a big strategic company that was owned by private equity. I came on as the chief brand officer and we scaled the company to like almost 1,000 people in 18, 19 months during COVID, the height of COVID. It was so wild. And then I left when we sold again. And and
selling twice is insane.
You know what? It's good. Selling twice is insane. And talking about like naivety, I didn't realize quite how insane it was and how lucky I am and was. But it's like anything in business, like right time, right place, like a lot of skill and a lot of luck. And so I like had a full on identity crisis after I sold because I had a non-compete. So I couldn't do PR for 5 years. My non-compete is actually up. Oh my gosh, it's up in 4 months, but I'm not getting back into PR for the aforementioned reasons. But I was like, my whole career had been PR and I had an identity as a publicist. And then I left and I'm like, I can't do the one thing I've always been good at. So I took a beat. I kind of figured out what I wanted to do. I like thought I was going to like quasi-retire.
Let's like go into this because I feel like a lot of people, even like post-grad, feel this way.
Yeah.
Like you've lived your whole life going to school and now all of a sudden, and maybe you got a degree in something that like you don't feel like is what you want to do. Like what did you like really on like a very detailed level? Like what did you do during that time?
So to even get even more detailed, I'd signed what's called an LOI, which is like your intent to sell a company, December 24th, 2019. I had a 2-year-old and my second baby was due February 20th. So I was running the due diligence process of selling a company while I had a toddler and I was like 37 months pregnant. I looked like I was like carrying quads. It was a very dark time. And about a week before the deal was supposed to sign, they called it off because of COVID. Wow. And it was like, oh my gosh, talk about like a deep depression. I had seen my newborn for like 3 seconds because I was like, I just have to get through these few weeks, you know? I mean, not literally 3 seconds, but like I was in such a manic state. It was so crazy. You're working so hard to get this through. You see the light at the end of the tunnel and then there's a global pandemic and you're like, well, fuck, like what are we going to do about that? So when ultimately the buyer was amazing and they're like, let's stay very close. And ultimately the company ended up selling in July. But between signing the LOI in December and selling in July, it was the most stressful period because when you are going to sell a company, you run your company a little differently than if you're like building a lifestyle company. You're really focused on margin and on profit. And so I was a crazy person during those 7 months. I'm so sorry to my husband. There was one time where I remember like I had like Theo, my son was like 3 weeks. I'm like, I can't do it anymore. And I gave my son to my husband and I was one of those people. I went to the Pendry in downtown San Diego and I was like, do you have a room? Like I never thought you actually like go to a hotel without a reservation. I was like, I need a room for the night. And so it was a really stressful time that I actually don't talk about that much, but I think is so important to talk about because it was so stressful. So the company ends up selling, I stay on. And then when I left after the second acquisition, that's when it all kind of like hit me. And I was like, I had been sprinting at a marathon pace. And so I was like, oh my God, what do I do? So I like hired a personal trainer. I like worked out 2 days. I'm like, I'm so bored. Like I'm not built to chill. Like I don't have that in my body. So I had to reinvent myself. I mean, quite frankly, like the thing that I did my whole life, I couldn't technically do anymore, but I love the industry and I love building brands. And I reunited with a former client of mine who's brilliant. And we had this idea to start a company kind of with the idea that like we've been there, done that, and we can kind of help other founders like cut to the front of the line because I've worked on almost any brand you've seen at like Erewhon or Sephora. I've probably touched in some way. And I did it through the lens of PR. She did it through the lens of operating a company as like a GM. We're like, what interesting but different experience. Like, why don't we like throw this all in a blender and see what happens? And that's kind of how Goldilocks was born.
I love the name too.
Oh, thank you. I love naming things.
It.
I saw a post you did for a friend of mine and you were saying how hard it is to name things. I could name things it's like my favorite thing ever.
No, that's what I'm the worst at in life.
Call me anytime you need to name something.
That is such a skill.
I own like 311 URLs because I'm like, oh shit, this is a good name. Maybe I'll launch a company one day. I love naming things. But the idea of Goldilocks was like just right. So like just the right amount of thing. It's kind of like, I love things that are a little whimsical. But and that was 2022. So it's been 3 years. We brought on another partner who's brilliant and we're having so much fun.
I just love it so much.
And I think it's like a good message to your audience that when you're in your 20s, I felt so much pressure to do it all, to like find the right guy, to be successful, to do, and I'm 42 now and I feel like my life kind of got started at 35 or 34. I mean, and I know for people that that feels maybe like you're old, but you're not. Like there is so much goodness happens in your 30s. You like really start to understand who you are. You kind of don't care about the bullshit, of which I never cared about. But I guess if I did a little, I cared less. And you're just kind of like coming into your own. I didn't launch my company till I was in my 30s. I didn't get married until I was in my 30s. So much happened in my 30s.
No, that's so encouraging.
Oh my gosh, we were just talking before. I'm like, do you date? And we decided that you're a reactive dater.
Yes.
But like even dating, I felt so much pressure. And it was like when you put that much pressure on it, it's probably not going to work.
Agreed. And I'm someone who I'm like really looking forward to my 30s and my 40s. Like
they're the
I'm not,
best.
so many people are like, oh, I never want to turn 30. And I'm like, I couldn't turn 30 fast enough. Like get me out of my 20s.
20s
you know?
are the hardest decade.
They're just not very fun.
I mean, 7th grade was terrible because I looked like Harry Potter. But after that, I would say my 20s were so hard. Like, so fun. I lived in New York. I had such a ridiculous life. But like, I was just, you're constantly trying to figure out who you are, improve yourself. I mean, it's just such a challenging time in life.
What I found too, I am like the firstborn daughter.
Yeah.
I'm the first in all of my family. I'm an Enneagram 3. Any personality test where you are like the leader, the overachiever, the fill in the blanks, that's me. So I put an excessive amount of pressure on myself. I've definitely gotten better at this because it made life like not worth living because I was so miserable. So I have really tried to tone it down. And also the things that it's like, there's this meme that was going around on like TikTok or something. And it basically said this girl who was like, no, you're in your 20s. You don't have to figure it out. But like, I'm in a different 20s. And I have to
totally.
figure it
Like
out.
this rule actually doesn't apply to me.
Yeah, but for all of you, like, you don't have to figure it out. I'm like, that's literally this podcast.
But how do you actually do it? Because if you're wired, how you seem to be wired, like how did you actually take some of the pressure off yourself?
Okay, so like I've tried it. I try so hard all the time to do it. So I don't feel like I've mastered it at all. But one of the things I try to like think about myself when I'm like my 50s or 60s and think, I know the advice that I would give myself is to chill out. Like the whole point is to not have it figured out.
Yeah.
Also, having women around me that I really look up to and admire, like I invest in those relationships, all of which are probably over 50, has really helped me because I talk to them and I hear them talk about their 20s a lot. And I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts. And anyone who's older than me, I'm interested. So having that context is very helpful. I also, like, this is something I'm actually the worst at this, but something that I'm like really trying to do is like, when like you are like praying or manifesting or whatever your like form of spiritual practice is, I'm someone who's like, yeah, thanks, that's great, but like I don't celebrate wins well at all. And I'm like, I need this, I want this, I want this. And I'm trying so hard now to shift it to be like, thank you for what, like, yes, it is gratitude, but it's like a like proactive gratitude. It's like, thank you for like my names are being spoken in rooms that I couldn't imagine. Like I'm trying so hard to live from that. I think that might be the answer. By no means, like, and I think it might be the answer because of how many people I've asked for that answer. I don't know. I think there's like something about when you're so like driven, it's hard to like find contentment, but also continue to operate in your drive. Cause I'm similar when you're like, oh, I couldn't not be busy. Like I could never not be busy. Like I genuinely like, I love to work. It like is what lights me up. It's what I'm so excited when people are like, oh, I'm not fulfilled in my job. I'm like, I couldn't be more fulfilled.
I feel
like
the same.
I love it, but it is hard. So anyways, all of those are not my answers. They're answers that I've gotten from other people, but I think it might help.
They're great answers. And you mentioned something that I still struggle with. And my dad, like, I don't think he coined this, but like the hedonistic life cycle where you're here and you never thought you could be here. But now that you're here, what's there? And it's like, if you could look back and your 20-year-old saw you here, you'd be like, no fucking way. But that's now not good enough. And now it's the next thing. And it's like, that can be super dangerous, I think, especially I say this all the time. I have a 24 and 22-year-old niece. I'm like, if social media existed when I was in like high school, I would have been dead from anxiety. Yeah. Like it is, I feel so badly for people that like live their life online and compare themselves. Like it's already hard enough to like be a woman in this world. And then you're constantly comparing. And I think like your generation, I guess we are very different generations, but your generation has so many things that are coming at you that I never had to deal with. And I don't know how I would have done in my 20s in 2025. Like I feel for you guys.
It's so interesting that you just said that about when I get to this level, I'm ready for the next. Friend of mine launched an anthropology like last week and I got a text.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that I'm such an anthropology girl. My mom, everyone in my family, they're all interior decorators. They had like bedding and drapery companies. Like I have like grown up in the home space and my whole like anthropology is like my comfort place. Like if I'm stressed or anxious, I've roamed that. So like that was my biggest, before we even like launched Friend of Mine, my goal was for it to be an anthropology. So for it to be like our first retailer, I was like so excited. But I've known that for like months that we were launching anthropology, right? Which apparently, by the way, I guess I move in silence now because I thought I told everyone and like no one knew. And I'm like,
so you've been keeping this for how long?
No, I was not actively keeping it. Because I just thought I knew for probably 3 or 4 months. Okay. I thought I told everyone around me.
I see.
And but again, I just like moved on to the next. Yeah. I got a text from one of my like childhood friends, and she was like with me when I like started my YouTube channel. So when all this started like a decade ago. And she said like, oh my God, our like 15 and 16-year-old selves would be like screaming, crying, throwing up right now. And it was a reminder because I'm like, I think back to that and I sometimes think like, no, I would have wanted like 1 million subscribers and I would have wanted like X, Y, and Z. But where my life is now, truly, it is better than what I had pictured at 15, 16. But I still am like, I was like, wow, that text like really woke me up to being like, I need to be like living from gratitude. Like I am being kind of like an evil bitch right now.
No, you know? And it's hard because like it's really self-fulfilling. The more successful you are, the more opportunities there are. Yeah. And it's really hard to like turn it off, or it's really hard to pause and celebrate. I don't have the answer for that. Like I didn't think necessarily at this age, after selling a few companies, I would still be working this hard, but I love what I do. And I think we definitely have that in common. So if you can somehow find a balance between loving what you do and also celebrating where you're at and not always looking for the next thing, like that's probably the winning combo.
You know what actually has really helped me?
What is that?
Have you ever seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding? I always give this analogy. Favorite movie ever. You know how the dad is with Windex?
Yes.
That is how I am with hobbies. I think that hobbies are the cure for all. And
I love that.
Genuinely, even though, yes, I have monetized majority of my hobbies, but that's kind of like what I do.
Yeah.
I think having hobbies where I built a life outside of work has been very beneficial for me, especially like creative hobbies, because it's just been very good for my mental health. So I also think that's been a huge shift for me where like I have things that I look forward to and a life that I've created that I really enjoy living. And it's not just all about my job. Like I think that's really helped me.
I mean, that's huge. My hobbies are my kids. And
it's different because I'm like single and I live alone, you know?
But I think it's the same thing. Like something else very obviously my kids are way more important than any job, but something to balance it all. Like what are you all doing it for? Like if you have to be able to go and cook and read and do like all that stuff only matters if you are allowing yourself the space to have it.
Totally. Okay, I have so many questions on like the brand end.
Yes, let's do it.
So what advice would you give? Like, I'm obviously asking these questions selfishly, but like, what advice would you give to the listeners? For building a brand that like your consumer, your audience is obsessed with?
It's a great question, and that's like the core of what we do. And there's so many different ways to answer this. There's a really interesting framework, and it's called Jobs to Be Done. And it's from these like two very smart, I don't know if they're social scientists or what, but if you actually like really go back and you think about like, why am I creating a product? So many people become obsessed with the product itself. Like I want to create a matcha lemonade because I love matcha and there's no low-cal matcha lemonade and I'm going to use ashwagandha and like you start to do all of this. The Jobs to Be Done theory it basically says that people hire a brand, a company to do a job for them. And so an example would be you have a drill. A drill is the product, but the actual job to be done is hanging a picture on the wall. So if you become obsessed with the end state of what a consumer wants, which is hanging a picture on the wall, you can then reverse engineer to creating a perfect product. And what that also does is it gets you in the head state of like what a consumer actually wants. And if you are creating a product because you think you need it, but it's not actually solving a problem for a consumer, it's not in a space where there's not already a billion Me Too brands, it's going to be an uphill battle. So we always tell people, like we at Goldilocks work with brands that are pre-revenue. So like founders come to us and they're like, I have an idea. And we also work with publicly traded companies. We're totally revenue agnostic. And the same methodology is for both sides of that, which is your product solving a consumer need? Are you the world's best at offering this product? What does the competition offer that you do better? And then you start to kind of do a Venn diagram and like that target is where you should start to really build a product around. And I think a lot of founders fall in the space of like, oh, I think this should exist, but they haven't actually like done their diligence to be like, is this actually solving a problem for the consumer? And it's like, would someone hire this brand to get a job to be done?
That's like the most helpful framework I think ever.
Oh, well, thank you. I can't take credit for it, but it's I think it's in a book called The Innovator's Dilemma. But yeah, I think it's like, and I talk about this a lot, it's going back to the basics. It's talking to people. It's figuring out like, what do you're 27, your brand, you have like journals, you have all these amazing things that came out of, what did it come out of the need of for you?
Like gathering people in the home.
Exactly.
Posting.
And I think now, especially with like what's happening in the world, there's something so beautiful and like analog about bringing people in a home and like turning off your phones. I grew up with the question jar. every family dinner, we had to each take a question out of the question jar. And and I think that like ignited my love for talking, but there's something so beautiful about just like connection, pure connection. Yeah. And like your brand, I think is definitely addressing a consumer demand right now, which is like gathering, connection, being in real life, getting off Zoom, getting off your phone. And so I think you maybe without even doing that framework did it.
Thanks. I think I like started the brand and I knew kind of what I wanted, but I didn't have, I maybe like didn't articulate it well, if that makes sense. I feel like as time, we're only like a year and probably like 4 months into this, like we're very, very early, but it was more of an aha moment that like, this is really, everything is just to gather in that home. My whole life really has been like gathering people together. Like even when I was very young, like I was always the one throwing the parties, so like surprise parties for friends. Like we were the house people who would come over. Like so much of my life in every, even like the YouTube channel, like vlogging, I was gathering a group of girls who like, I was always about gathering people together. So as I got older and I became like obsessed with hosting, and that was really kind of my childhood anyway. It just kind of came together well. But I don't think I came at it necessarily with that framework, but I think it kind of came together after the fact.
And I would say like even some of the brands that are doing like hundreds of millions in revenue have come to us and they actually haven't done this foundational framework, this brand strategy work. And you can definitely get by, but what it does is it provides you a framework to like, if you're going to launch more products, you go back to this brand strategy. Is this actually like fulfilling what the consumer wants? Or you can go totally rogue and like launch stuff that like people don't necessarily want. And then it starts to fragment the brand. And then it starts to become a little bit of like everything in the kitchen sink. And so that's, I think, a problem I see founders going in is that when they're not really knowing what problem they're solving for the consumer and what guardrails to stay within, it starts to become super random. You can probably think of a ton of brands like that. You're like, why are they launching that? That's super random. So, and sometimes it works, but oftentimes it doesn't.
What are some brands that you think are doing this really well right now?
I use this example a lot of Graza.
I love Graza.
Yeah, Graza is amazing. I was lucky to work with Andrew and Alan early on. We launched their PR, and actually the firm, my firm I sold still does their PR. And they just were able to do something so different in a commoditized space. They were able to take olive oil, which 99 of 100 people have in their cabinet at home, and they were able to like make it fun and make it feel like how chefs use it with really fun branding. They didn't take themselves too seriously. And now look at what they're innovating. I mean, they do the coolest collabs. They now have a spray, but it wasn't like rocket science. And they launched the COVID, was like, not 2020, but like we're still in the COVID area where people were like, everyone thought they were home chef. And I think they crushed on their social. My friend Kendall runs their social, and she just was brilliant with like making people feel like they were part of the Graza community. Definitely. And I think that's when people say like what brands are crushing, it's like when the community is the hero.
Yes.
I think that's so important.
How do you make the community the hero?
I think what we're seeing now is there's been like a lot of examples of brands that have gotten a lot of heat lately for spending so much on influencers. And like that is very 2015 to me. It's inaccessible. It's not the people that are buying your brand and are on subscription. It feels very transactional. I don't think that's like a hard and fast rule. I think like the Tinks and Hot and Tabasco collab was so brilliant because for years she talked about her love of hot sauce. Yes. So when she launched something, it wasn't like, oh, they're selling out and launching. It was like, no, this girl like lives on it. But I think those are farther and few between.
I think too, like with a Tinks example or like an influencer collaboration like that, where the audience has followed along for so long. Like
they're waiting for it.
Yeah. And they're primed for equally as excited as probably Tinks is for that collaboration.
100%.
Like, oh my God, so fun. I've seen this for so long.
Right.
Like,
when people are like, oh, that makes sense. But there's a lot of dialogue right now talking about like influencer versus creator versus community, right? And I think what we're seeing now are brands are starting to pay a lot more attention to creators, which maybe are folks that don't have 1 million followers, but they're 300 followers are so diehard. And if they do something and they shoot it really well and it's beautiful, it will work. And so I think the pendulum is just swinging back a little bit. And I think, a lot of brands suffered a lot in the last 2 years and their marketing dollars were cut. So they were kind of forced to do more grassroots things. But brands that have like really good ambassador programs, I think when you reward your community, it pays you back like tenfold. And the brands that are doing it today, I think are like winning by and large.
Totally. I also think like the influencer space is still like relatively new. Like we're still kind of in the wild west. And brands, I feel like we're just like throwing things at influencers thinking like just because you have 1 million followers, you're going to sell X amount of product. And like they have their specific niche of the internet, you know? So like, I feel like it didn't always convert.
100%. And like in the glory days of like influencer marketing, we would have clients spend so much money and they would be like, why didn't it convert? And it's like, you know, I was working with Beyond Meat during their like heyday when they IPO'd, and it was like, just because they have 3 million followers, like half of their followers are not at all interested in plant-based. Like it's the wrong audience. And just because you have eyeballs doesn't mean you actually have conversion. And there is something to be said for eyeballs. Like brand awareness, I you know, despite not being a publicist anymore, like my first love is like brand awareness, and brand awareness matters, but it's not necessarily a tool that can be very like KPI driven for conversion unless you're really targeting the right person.
I think too, like for us, it's like when you're a smaller brand, you're just starting, like you don't really have as much money for just like brand awareness. Like you really do need conversion.
Yeah.
Like for us, I've always focused on like community first, but it is like an influencer started brand. But I also have so many friends who are influencers who are like posting it organically anyway. So I'm in like a different
I would agree. You're not someone where it's like, someone came to you for like a licensing deal. And it's like, hey, I'm launching these pens. I know you like to do hostess, you know, like it's not like that. And you've also been doing this a long time. And I think there's a new batch, I think, of influencers that are like newer and they don't have this like authentic following. And like authenticity is everything in PR and brand building. I'm sure you know this. Your audience would turn on you in a dime, I would feel, if you did something that was super unauthentic. They'd be like, you're a sellout. So I also feel for creators and influencers because you probably get hit up with so many things, but you know that your audience is key. And if you lose your audience, you lose your power.
Yes. You lose everything that you've built for so long. Like it's not worth it. You love storytelling.
I love storytelling.
So can we talk about storytelling more in the brand sense?
Yeah.
Like what would be your tips? What would you say to someone when it comes to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it goes back to authenticity too. Like no one needs to hear about like another like female founded brand on a regenerative agriculture farm. Like it feels like very dime a dozen. And I think bringing people along with you and building a brand is so powerful. Like what worked and what didn't. Like I think going back to my friend Kira at Set, like they recently did this whole bloopers campaign because they got products, they weren't the right size. It was a huge operational like disaster, I'm sure, but they brought people into it. And then they made like really fun content after that. And I think like taking the kind of like the Wizard of Oz, like bringing people along until how brands are built just makes people want to root for you. And again, going back to old school tactics, I think people love that and people want that. And so going back to community too, I think if you're like sitting, you know, like up here and the brand's down here, it's just so much harder to build that authenticity. And so storytelling from behind the scenes, like you made a product, it didn't go well. Why didn't it go well? What are you going to do about it? You know, there's examples right now of like, there's this bagel brand called like Better Bagel, and they're getting killed right now because it just feels like they're not at all being honest to their consumers. And they have this lens of they're being honest, they're honest. And like consumers will call you out.
What are they doing right now? What's happening?
I think dealing with like a PR disaster. I mean, they've been up and down, and I think people are getting product, and the product's not good quality. And like I see that, and I'm like, this is 2025. Like you can't fool people. Like people will go online and they'll take pictures and they'll show you what their product looks like. You can't lie to people anymore. And you used to, I think, be able to do that. But everything's so democratized and everything is so public now that like you don't have the ability as a brand to be inauthentic and to get away with it anymore.
Agreed. And I also think that has a lot to do with like influencer stuff over the years.
Yeah.
Just because for so long, I feel like the line, it was just like murky water. And now it's so apparent. And because just the landscape of advertising has changed so much, it's that much more obvious.
Yeah, I'm curious for you, like how have you navigated that? Like as your platform has grown and you've gotten more opportunities, like what filter do you use?
So I'm really lucky because I've built a platform where a lot of it's lifestyle and I have so many different interests.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of inbound. Like so many of the people who are working at these companies that are managing these deals have followed me forever. So we have like a ton of inbound at all times. So I can't even do all the inbound to begin with. So like it actually wouldn't even be a problem because I wouldn't like, there's not time. Like there's already ones that like I would want that you have to turn down anyway, but it's just not worth it. Like I think it would be different. I think it would be transparently way harder if I didn't have, like I have a YouTube channel, I have a podcast, I have my TikTok, I have my Instagram. Like there's always different streams of revenue. Then we have like, we'll do live shows, we'll do merch. Like if if my only revenue stream was just like ads, I think it would be a little bit different.
Yeah.
And it would be harder because it's like, well, you need to pay the bills at the same time. But even when I was younger, like honestly, I've just been really lucky and that I've had like consistent good brands to work with.
And I'm sure like anything, you also have a really good intuition and gut.
Yes.
You know, that is so important. Like anything that we do for brands, it's like a mix of art and science. And so much of good marketing these days is gut and intuition. And like you have to sometimes take a little risk, but like you have to do it with a framework of some framework to not like screw you. But I think when I look at like creators that I still follow or influencers I still follow, like I look at the brand deals they do and I'm like, it always just feels like they were so thoughtful when considering it. And I think that really matters.
I also will become very obsessed with something and I will post it for so long and then eventually that will be like turn into a deal.
Totally.
And then I'll like do repeat deals and stuff.
That's what I say to my clients all the time, more so when I was doing PR. If they're like, hey, I want so-and-so to either like do an equity deal or do ambassador. I'm like, first thing, send them product. Let's just see if they organically like it and if they post. And I know people's credibility, like I know that is their like cultural capital is their platform. But if someone really loves a product and they start to post, one, if there ever is a deal, it becomes so much more authentic. But two, like you don't want to do a deal with someone who's just like, yeah, I'll do this for 3 months. Here are the terms and conditions. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work for the brand and it doesn't work for the influencer.
And I also think like going the extra mile, like on the influencer side, it's like I'm always, if I really, really like a deal that I'm working with, like I always want to do like a little bit more.
Yep.
Because chances are probably like worked for that. I also am pretty strategic. Like I don't think it would come across that way necessarily, especially in like YouTube vlogs and stuff. But like if I know like I'm just even thinking about like different friend of mine launches and stuff, like all of it is very true to the brand. It all like it's all makes sense anyway, but I'm starting to talk about that stuff specifically 6 months in advance, even though they don't know that there's like a product coming. So like I am like so I'm the same way with brand deals. It's like if I really want to work with I love home decor obviously, and like I actually get all of my favorite furniture from Wayfair. I'm like obsessed with Wayfair.
Really?
It's shocking. Like I have these blue and white striped chairs. I've sold a sickening amount of these chairs, and I'm obsessed with them. They're very like Nancy Meyers traditional, love them. And like my Nashville place, like I love working with Wayfair. I love Wayfair. Like genuinely, that's what I pick. But like I know that like I want to continue working with them, so I'm furnishing my entire place with them because that's one what I would like anyways, and two I know they have budget. You know what I mean?
Remember like 3? Was it like 5?
Yes, the cancellation.
Oh my gosh! Way to come back, Wayfair.
It was also the weirdest thing ever.
Was so weird.
That was so crazy. I wonder how that even started. Because it came out as not true.
It's one of those things where like if you eat Pop Rocks, you'll explode and die. And people are just like, do not eat Pop Rocks. And suddenly you're like, wait, but who actually ever started this?
Where did that come from?
Yeah. Well, you can tell your love for Wayfair. You can genuinely tell. Okay, a very tactical question. How do you know if it's good quality? Because there's so much stuff on Wayfair.
So I don't just buy anything on Wayfair. Like I know exactly what I'm going to get. I do a lot, like they have on their website, they have like great reviews. So I'll go through, but honestly, like I haven't gotten anything. I'm very mindful with like what I'm going to pick because it has so much stuff. So much of it is ugly, you know? But like, I'm very mindful. I go through all the reviews. I haven't gotten anything that's been negative quality. I literally should be like the Wayfair spokesperson because I found like you come into my house, you would never think that any of it's Wayfair because like you think it's like cheap quality or whatever. It's not. It's incredible quality.
Oh my gosh.
I love the furniture so much in my Dallas home that I wanted my Nashville house to look like that. And I just repurchased it in different colors to do a spin on it. That's how much I love it.
See, now that is brand loyalty right there.
Love it.
The only time I purchased off Wayfair was like a play set and my handyman quit halfway through and started to cry. He's like, this has 98,000 pieces, but I did find someone to do it, but that's a little different. But okay, well, the love for Wayfair is real. I feel it in this room.
Amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is just like strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I look at someone like you who's 27 and I'm like blown away by building a career also in like a kind of uncharted, like you don't have too many role models that have been doing this for 20, 30 years because the dawn of social has been, it's really, really impressive.
Thank you. Oh my gosh.
Your 50-plus-year-old mentors are doing a really good job with you.
Thank you. I'm also like an 85-year-old woman, so I think that maybe that's also why I love them so much. I'm an old soul. Like I need a point and like garden. Like I like to do that stuff.
Can you knit?
No, you would think it's kind of right up my alley, but I don't really have time for another hobby right now. It's a little exhausting.
What's your go-to hobby?
Needlepoint and reading, cooking, gardening.
Okay. What's a good book you've read on business?
I love, is it Burn the Boats by Matt Higgins?
Okay, I've heard of
really
it, but
like that. And I love him. Like he's just like, he's also been like incredibly kind to me.
Oh, amazing.
I love that book outside of him though. I think it's just great.
And do you always read versus audio?
No, I love an audiobook and I will typically, I don't, like sometimes like I also love the like 10x is greater than 2x. I think that might be the best business book I've ever read, Dan Sullivan. And then there's one other one by them, The Gap in the Gain.
Okay.
That's actually, honestly, circling back to our conversation earlier about not feeling content. The Gap in the Gain changed my life on that. Like,
I love that.
It's the best framework.
The Gap in the
Gain. It's actually the most incredible book.
Okay.
But anyway, I listen to like a lot of memoirs on audiobooks, and then I will do some, but a lot of the time I'll read a nonfiction book, and then like I'm obsessed with it, and I do like a whole solo podcast on it. So I like need it physically to like have notes on it. You know?
I love that. So you've just always loved to read.
Love. Oh my God, I grew up on like Nancy Drew and like Ginny
Oh
B.
my
Jones,
gosh,
all that.
Nancy Drew. I gotta bring those back.
A good business book rec to leave them with?
2 like classics, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean, it's like a self-help book probably from the 70s, but I think it just like, it kind of teaches empathy and curiosity and how to connect with people. And then this is so not a business book, but it's a business book for me, The Art of Seduction. So there's like the art of war, the art of seduction, and it talks about the greatest seducers since the dawn of time, from Cleopatra. I mean, and it applies like modern techniques to today. And I don't think I'm ever actively trying to seduce someone, but what it does is, again, I think it's just like the psychology of getting in someone's mind.
No, I need to read that.
Okay, I'll send you it on Amazon.
Need it. I'm currently reading for our House Guest Book Club. It's like the world's most famous hostess, like The Art of like Pearl Musta.
Oh, okay.
On the cover, it's like Jackie Kennedy and her, but she's like in DC. She's like the most famous hostess. Like it's so
fun.
interesting. So I feel like I'm gonna love that.
I said my mom would love that. You are an 85-year-old.
No, literally.
My mom would love that.
And so I think I'm gonna end up loving that. And I think it's actually gonna like be very applicable to business.
I love that. I love that. I feel like I could talk to you for like 10 hours.
Oh, literally forever. You are welcome back at any time.
I would love to come back anytime. And I'll just leave this with your audience. Like, you are doing great in your 20s, whatever you're doing. And you have 80, God willing, years left to figure it out. So be kind to yourself. Be curious, be kind, and like it's all gonna work out.
And like you're not supposed to have it figured out anyways. That's what I tell myself.
Oh my God, no. The person I would have married in my 20s, the job, I mean, please. Real. Yeah. You're making much better decisions in your 30s.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at the Sarah Brooks, and Goldilocks is itsgoldilocks.com.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you. It was so fun.